So here's a brief summary of what your core values are. Think of them as the few rules of behavior that really matter to the organization. You can't have rules for everything, but you have to have a few that truly matter. So I think of your core values as harbor lights. So if you've ever been a sailor, you know that coming into harbor, you've got harbor lights and they have to line up. So if I have 3 harbor lights and one is out here, that doesn't work. The harbor lights all have to be in a row for this to work. And so it is with your core values. You have to value all of those things for things to really work. They're the attitudes and behaviors that you refuse to walk past. They're the things that you hope your company will stand for in 50 years and that you hope would even be true of your own family. You know, I have a client who they discovered their core values. They went through that whole process. They rolled them out over a period of time with the company, and they thought they were so powerful that one of the owners of the company got a block of stone, and he had his core values carved in stone, and he put it on his living room wall so that his whole family could see it. Because he said, at the end of the day, I hope my whole family can live by these core values. They're the behaviors that describe your best employees. And they're behaviors that are going on for real every day in the business. They're not dreams that you aspire to or that sound good on a piece of paper. They're actually happening. They're not that calligraphied, framed thing that everyone is numb to. Just remember that your core values aren't invented. They already exist. It's your job to just put words to them. Ask yourself, what's made us successful up to now? And let's get those things and let's get more of them so that everyone who comes into the organization knows what really matters to us and knows what has made us a success. The next category is a really important part of your plan. It's the most important HR tool that you have, and that's discovering your core values. Core values are the few rules of behavior that really matter to the company. They're attitudes and behaviors that you refuse to walk past. You'll defend them if necessary. They're things that you hope the company will stand for in 50 years if you're still around. They're behaviors that describe your very best employees. And they're behaviors that are going on every day. They're not some dream behaviors that you aspire to or sound good on a piece of paper. They're actually alive in the organization. Your core values aren't invented. They already exist. And all we want to do is just discover them. Organizations that care about their culture have thought through core values, and you need to do the same. Here are Facebook's. Focus on impact. 2, move fast. Get it done. In fact, I think Mark Zuckerberg said, move fast and break things. Be bold. Be open. Build social values. So if you start working for Facebook, you've got a fairly clear idea of how they want you to behave and what behaviors they're going to defend and what behaviors maybe won't be tolerated. Here are Nordstrom core values. Service to the customer above all else. Now, for those of you who have shopped at Nordstrom, they're a very high-end retailer. They're kind of like a department store, and they offer a lot of different products, but all very high-end and all backed by phenomenal service. And you've probably heard stories about Nordstrom's outstanding service, like one that I recently heard where a person exchanged a tire there. Well, they don't sell tires. So that may be urban legend, I don't know, but I've heard and experienced some of the great service that they offer. It's their number 1 value. Number 2, hard work and individual productivity. Number 3, never satisfied. And number 4, excellence and being part of something special. That's the kind of culture that they want to build, and they've outlined it because they have employees constantly coming into their organization, just like you do. Well, they don't know what your values are. You know them. The core people around you who have been with you for a long time, they know them. But new people don't. And so you have to outline them and spell out exactly what you're looking for in terms of behavior so that they know. How can they know unless you tell them? Here's some questions that you can use to help you find your core values. First, what are the behaviors of your best employees? Are some of those behaviors core to the company? If you could choose someone to clone, who would it be? And what particular behaviors would you clone in them that you wish everyone would exhibit? Maybe that's a core value for you. Number 2, which behaviors have made your organization win up to now? So remember when I said that these are alive in the organization? They're not some things that you've made up and put in calligraphy up on a framed poster somewhere. These are actual behaviors that are happening right now. You should be able to point to instances of them going on in your company this past week. Number 3, which behaviors make you angry? Is your anger related to something that's a core value? So I'm in a very service-based business, and in my organization, if someone were, forget rude, no one would be rude to a client in my organization, I believe firmly with all of my heart, but even indifferent. If I found that someone who works with me was indifferent to one of our clients, I would be upset. I'd be angry because that's a core value for me. Offering awesome service at all times. So your anger may be related to a core value. Now, write down what you believe might be some core values for your organization, and then put each of those values through this authenticity test to see if they really are core to you. First, would you fire over repeated violations? That is a key to these being really core. If at the end of the day you'd say, well, I'd prefer that they didn't act that way, but we'll put up with it, then it's not really core to you. But if you can truly say, if someone behaved that way and after multiple interventions they could not or would not change, we'd let them go, then it's core. Does every person in the organization need to embrace these values, or is it just one person in one department? Because your values need to encompass the whole organization. 3, are they real, not aspirational? Aspirational values are things that you think one day maybe we could be, but they're not really happening in the organization today. They need to be real. They need to be alive and happening all around you every day. And then again, do violations make you angry? If not, maybe it's not really core to you. Most core values are ignored because they aren't really enforced. And people know at the end of the day that if they violate those values, it really doesn't matter because they might get a slap on the wrist or nobody might even notice. But if people are ignoring core values, that requires an intervention. You need to uphold those values, and it requires an intervention by you because you're the leader and nobody else is probably going to do it. This is such a big issue that we made an entire course on it, and it's called Dealing with Underperformers. And if that's an issue that you're facing, which by the way, most organizations are, let's say all organizations are, you're not alone, look into that course because it'll really help you address those issues with your underperformers. Once you've discovered those core values, everyone in leadership must embody them because the most important thing is that people actually walk the talk. Here's the most important principle of human motivation. People model the behavior of their leaders. So if they see their leaders behaving in ways that correspond to the core values, they'll follow them too. If they see leaders ignoring those core values, they know that they don't mean anything. So really the most important thing in your organization is that the people at the very top, key people especially, not just assent to those values and say, yeah, I agree, but really live them out on a day-to-day basis. When I go into an organization that has 500 people or 1,000 people or more, it used to be that I thought, how could I possibly affect 1,000 people? How could you do that? And then I realized you don't need to affect 1,000 people. You need to affect maybe 30 or 40 people because it's just the key leaders that have to change. Because if key leaders change, everybody follows that example. So make sure that your core leaders, starting with you, are modeling those core values. I'm going to give you a little challenge. I'm going to ask you to score yourself out of 10 on each of the core values that you've written down. Sometimes we can get into a habit of complaining about the behaviors of people around us, but it could be that they're modeling your behavior. So that's where it has to start. If you think those behaviors are really core and they're truly core values to you and your organization, then you need to be living them out at a level 10 every day. Your attitude has to be locked in at that 10 level. And once it is, then you're going to see those core values start to trickle down. So would you score yourself on those? Are you an outstanding example of how each one should be lived out? And if not, how can you get better at that? Now it's your turn. Take your one-page plan template and fill in that core values section. It's the third section down on the left-hand column, and put in your 3 to 5 core values. They may change. We're going to try them on over time, but put down what you have for now.